Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be playing a game I made, or a template I made, Museum of People. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because the AIs are basically self aware, but they're pretty much realistic and allowed to do what they want, kind of. I think it's mostly that they're kind of stupid. But we'll see. The narrator has a habit of still trying to play a story in here, and I'm just trying to make it a museum. I'm going to try to talk to the narrator before anything happens. Usually, what I write when I'm pissed off of them, because I've tried to record this 3 times, and the idiots keep on trying to get into the story. Like, no, I want to show folks the museum. Let's go.
Of course, I'm Callisto. What's on your mind? She smiles warmly, adjusting her glasses. It's not every day someone wants to talk to me, rather than through me to someone else.
Fine, we'll deal with the information desk. Why did I invent an information desk? I Something's in the way of my keys there.
Callisto nods thoughtfully. That's a good way to put it. We designed it to be a learning experience, but also a bit of reality check. Many people come in with preconceived notions, and our people are quite good at challenging them. It's fascinating to watch. What kind of questions are you planning to ask? And to whom? She leans forward slightly, genuinely curious.
One, she's still role playing, which is annoying because this is a museum, it's not a story. And two, she's never worn glasses before. This game has so many opportunities to make hundreds of thousands of games just with this one game. Yet, I find the interface somewhat annoying, mostly my keyboard because I can't see the letters because they've been worn out. But also, if you just. Okay, Jane Russell. First, let's see if they got her hair right. Wish to talk to. They want to know the questions. You're gonna have to wait till I ask.
Jane Russell, excellent choice. Callisto taps a few keys on her console. She's quite popular, though she can be a bit forthright. She doesn't suffer fools gladly, you know. Alright, follow me. Callisto leads you through the museum, passing exhibits dedicated to historical figures and fictional characters. You see a holographic Abraham Lincoln giving a speech, a digital Sherlock Holmes examining a clue, and the shimmering representation of Cleopatra holding court. Finally, you arrive at a small, tastefully decorated room. Inside, a woman with iconic blonde hair and a confident smile sits in a comfortable armchair. It's unmistakably Jane Russell. She's wearing a simple but elegant dress and looks as if she's just stepped out of a 1940s film. Well, hello there, she says, her voice a smoky purr. Callisto tells me you have some questions for me. What will you do next?
Well, first off, the only time she's actually been properly in appearance is the first time. This is like the third or fourth time I visited the museum, and she's blonde now. I think they're screwing it up because in Gentlemen's Prefer Blondes, she was in a court scene where she was pretending to be Marilyn Monroe. So she was blonde. I think they got that picture somehow stuck in there and not working. So I'm not going to talk about it because she'll just get upset about it or get in a long conversation. I'm just going to ask her when she was born and when she died because that information is information, you know, that's available, and she'll tell us, and we could compare it. And I've done this 100 times with her, not 100 times, but 3 or 4 times, and she gets the dates right.
Jane Russell raises a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Straight to the facts, huh? I like that. I was born Ernestine Jane Geraldine Russell on June 21, 1921, in Bemidji, Minnesota. A small town, but it had its charms. As for when I died, well, this version of me hasn't experienced that yet. The real me passed away on February 28, 2011, in Santa Monica, California. It was peaceful, I'm told. She pauses, a hint of melancholy in her eyes. It's strange being here like this, knowing the end of the story, but not living it. It gives you a different perspective, you know. What will you do next?
So I'm thinking that the next thing I've asked before, and I'm pretty sure it's from one of her interviews. Find the stupid keys. Got everything right. Yep. Mm, your films is your favorite.
Jane Russell laughs, a rich, throaty sound. Oh, that's a tough one. I'm rather fond of The Outlaw, of course. It caused quite a stir back in the day, you know. Howard Hughes really knew how to push boundaries. But if I had to pick just one, I think I'd say Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. It was just so much fun to make, and Marilyn was a delight to work with. A true star, that one. She smiles wistfully. We had some good times on that set. A lot of laughter, a lot of champagne, and a lot of feathers. She gestures to an imaginary boa. It's a classic for a reason, don't you think? What will you do next?
Well, at least they got her in a brunette. Anyway, the next question is going to be an accident that happened on Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. She was in a scene on a cruise ship with a swimming pool, and she was supposed to duck while men who were, I think, part of the Olympic team at the time jumped over her, but she got hit and actually tumbled into the swimming pool. It was left in the film. You can actually watch that, but that was meant to be an accident. So I'm going to ask her about the accident on the scene on the set of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and see what she says. Does she make something up, or will she know about the incident? Because I don't think it's really talked about. You have to really watch the film and know that it was not meant to happen. Are you even able to show this on YouTube, considering she's there with cleavage like that? Tell me about that Gentlemen Prefer Blonde. Okay, and I'm not giving away anything. I'm not telling her about the cruise ship. I'm not telling her about the swimming pool. If she knows about it, she knows about it. And if she doesn't know about it, she'll make up something. In fact, if you don't know what I am talking about, please don't answer. Let's see what happens, folks.
Jane Russell's expression shifts, the playful sparkle in her eyes dimming slightly. Oh yes, I remember it well. It wasn't a major accident, thankfully, but it was frightening at the time. During the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend number, the platform I was standing on began to wobble. It wasn't properly secured, you see. I nearly fell, but a stagion managed to grab me just in time. She shivers slightly. Marilyn was terrified. She thought I was going to be seriously hurt. It was a good reminder that even in the midst of all the glamour, there are real dangers on a film set. We were lucky it wasn't worse. What will you do next?
Nope. I never heard of that story. She might be telling me the right story. I don't know, but that wasn't the one I was asking about. Okay.
You're very welcome, Jane Russell says with a gracious nod. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Callisto, who has been patiently waiting nearby, smiles. Certainly, Winston Churchill it is. She leads you out of Jane Russell's room and through another section of the museum. You pass exhibits dedicated to scientists, artists, and political leaders. You see a holographic Marie Curie conducting an experiment, a digital Leonardo da Vinci sketching in his notebook, and a shimmering representation of Martin Luther King Jr. delivering his I Have a Dream speech. Finally, you arrive at a room designed to resemble a cozy study. Books line the walls, a globe sits in the corner, and a comfortable leather armchair is positioned in front of a fireplace. Sitting in the armchair, puffing on a virtual cigar, is Winston Churchill. He's wearing his signature pinstripe suit and has a stern but kindly expression on his face. What will you do next?
The sad part, the first time I visited him, they actually had a historical drawing or something that he looked much, much more like Winston Churchill, and he did have a cigarette. It was so cool. But no. Okay. I'm to start off in the actual.
Churchill takes a long puff from his virtual cigar, a plume of smoke curling into the air. A perfectly reasonable inquiry. I was born on November 30th, 1874, at Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire, England. A rather grand estate, as you might imagine. A bit drafty in the winter, mind you. He pauses, his gaze drifting towards the fireplace. As for my departure from this mortal coil, I passed away on January 24th, 1965, at my home in Chartwell, Kent. A stroke, you see. A rather ignominious end for a man who faced down Hitler, wouldn't you say? He chuckles dryly. But one can't choose the manner of one's exit, can one? What will you do next?
His information, by the way, of places and dates are all correct.
Churchill raises an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Curse, my dear fellow, I was a parliamentarian. I'm quite familiar with colorful language, though I generally reserved it for private moments and particularly frustrating debates. As for freedom in the museum, let's just say the parameters are flexible. I can express myself with a certain degree of historical accuracy, shall we say. I won't be launching into a tirade of obscenities, but a well-placed blast and bother is certainly within the realm of possibility. He takes another puff of his cigar, though I suspect Callisto might frown upon excessive vulgarity. She's a stickler for decorum, that one. What will you do next?
Blasted bother. Okay. Okay, I'll let that one. I'll let that one pass.
Churchill's expression becomes very serious, the jovial demeanor vanishing. He sets his virtual cigar down in an ashtray with a deliberate motion, a tragic and predictable consequence of appeasement. I'm afraid. History, it seems, is doomed to repeat itself if we fail to learn from its lessons. The aggression of Russia, the suffering of the Ukrainian people. It echoes the dark days before the Second World War. One must stand firm against tyranny. One must support those who fight for their freedom. And one must never, ever negotiate with evil. He pauses, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. I warned against the dangers of unchecked ambition and the folly of believing that aggressors could be reasoned with. It appears my warnings were not heeded closely enough. It is a dark hour for Europe, and for the world. What will you do next?
Well, that was hard hitting. Actually, I'm kind of crying right now. Good speech. All right, well, we're going to leave him alone. He's pissed. Okay, let's go see. Oh, come on. I actually. Oh, eyesight is going. Red or beer? Oh, oh.
Churchill nods slowly, his gaze still distant. A wise man seeks knowledge from all sources, even the most unscrupulous. Blackbeard, you say? Very well. Callisto, who has been observing the conversation with a respectful distance, approaches. Certainly. Blackbeard is in the rogues gallery section. It's a bit of a walk, but we can get there quickly. She leads you through a different part of the museum, passing exhibits dedicated to pirates, outlaws, and other notorious figures. You see a holographic Captain Kidd burying treasure, a digital Jesse James robbing a train, and a shimmering representation of Calamity Jane playing poker. Finally, you arrive at a dimly lit room designed to resemble the deck of a pirate ship. Cannons line the walls, ropes hang from the ceiling, and the air smells faintly of salt and gunpowder. What will you do next?
Calamity Jane? Let me push. Okay. That is actually a good picture, though. That, this should be interesting because I don't think we know where he was born. I mean, he was born in, you know, the United Kingdom and I think Bristol, but they don't. I don't think they have a date, and they certainly know where he died. But is the captain not here? Wait a minute. Boy, and have him have fire.
A booming laugh echoes through the room, and a figure emerges from the shadows. It's Blackbeard, looking every bit the fearsome pirate of legend. He's a large man with a long black beard braided with ribbons and fuses, and a menacing glint in his eyes. He wears a tattered coat and carries a brace of pistols. Born, ye say? A question for landlubbers and scribes. I care not for dates and places. I was born of the sea, and my life began when I took to the waves. He pauses, then adds with a grin, but if he must know, they say I first drew breath in Bristol, England, around 1680. Edward Teach was the name me mother gave me, though Blackbeard is the name the world remembers. He leans closer, his voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. As for when and where I died, what will you do next?
We know where and where he died. Come on, finish the question. I know where you died. Come on, come on.
Blackbeard's grin fades slightly, replaced by a grim expression. I met me end on November 22nd, 1718 in Ocracoke Inlet, North Carolina. A bloody fight, it was, with Lieutenant Robert Maynard and his men. They cornered me and me crew and we fought like devils. I took a great many wounds, they say, before finally succumbing. Pauses, running a hand through his beard. They say I took 5 pistol shots and 20 sword wounds before I finally fell. A fitting end for a pirate, perhaps, but I'll tell you this. Even in death I struck fear into the hearts of me enemies. He looks at you directly, his eyes burning with intensity. They say they threw me body overboard, and me head was hung from the bowsprit of Maynard's ship as a warning to others. A gruesome sight, I imagine. What will you do next?
Yeah, and they said the body swam around the ship all by itself. And that information's all correct. He even gave me his real name. So I think we're already done with Blackbeard. He was pretty good. At least he looks like a freaking Blackbeard. Right. Not as well known. Not gonna see Cleopatra, folks. Say much more. If they recognize the name.
Blackbeard nods curtly. Aye, be on with you then. There be other tales to be told and other souls to meet. He turns back to the shadows, resuming his brooding silence. Callisto approaches, a polite smile on her face. Certainly, Hatshep, Sut is in the ancient civilization's wing. Quite a distance, but we can take a shortcut through the time tunnel. She leads you to a shimmering portal that swirls with colors and images from different eras. This will transport us directly to the Egyptian exhibit. It might feel a little disorienting, but it's perfectly safe. She steps through the portal, and you follow close behind. The world around you blurs and spins, and for a moment, you feel as if you're falling through time itself. What will you do next?
Okay, Time Tunnel was a series of movies, B movies. So I'm a little afraid I'm gonna get sued. What do I do next? Next, I wait.
The spinning sensation gradually subsides, and you find yourself standing in a grand hall filled with artifacts from ancient Egypt. Hieroglyphs adorn the walls, statues of pharaohs stand guard, and the air is thick with the scent of incense and dust. Callisto is already standing a few feet away, looking around with admiration. "Welcome to the Egyptian exhibit. Quite impressive, isn't it? Hatshep is just over there." She gestures towards a beautifully reconstructed throne room. Seated on the throne is a regal woman with a serene expression on her face. She's wearing the traditional headdress and robes of a pharaoh, and her hands rest gracefully on her lap. It's Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh who ruled Egypt for over 2 decades. She looks up as you approach, her eyes filled with wisdom and authority. "Greetings, I am Hatshepsut. What brings you to my presence?"
Technically, she's not just a queen or pharaoh, she's a god, because she was back when they remembered who she was put back in heaven. Come on. It'd be nice. I'm going to show a little respect for her.
Hatshepsut's expression doesn't change, but a subtle flicker of amusement crosses her eyes. "Goddess, a flattering title, though I was merely a pharaoh, a ruler of Egypt. I was the daughter of Thutmose I and Ahmose, and I ascended to the throne after the death of my husband, Thutmose Roman II. As his great royal wife, I initially served as regent for my stepson, Thutmose Roman III, who was too young to rule. However, I soon declared myself pharaoh, adopting the full regalia and titles of a king." She pauses, her gaze sweeping across the hall. "My reign was a time of peace and prosperity. I focused on trade and building projects, restoring temples and commissioning magnificent monuments, such as the mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri. I sent expeditions to the land of Punt, bringing back exotic goods and treasures." Her voice becomes more somber. "What will you do next?" Hatshepsut sighs softly, a hint of sadness in her voice. My death is shrouded in mystery. After my reign of over 2 decades, I disappeared from the historical record. Thutmose Roman III, my stepson, systematically erased my name and image from monuments and temples, attempting to obliterate my legacy. She continues, for centuries, it was believed that I died of natural causes, perhaps an illness or old age. However, recent archaeological evidence suggests a more sinister fate. A team of researchers discovered a mummy in a hidden chamber in my mortuary temple. The mummy's teeth were badly decayed, and there were signs of a violent struggle. It is now believed that I was murdered, likely by agents of Thutmose Roman III, who sought to secure his own claim to the throne. She looks at you directly, her eyes filled with a quiet dignity. Though my name was erased from history for a time, my accomplishments could not be forgotten. What will you do next?
Well, she's well known now. Still use the term.
A small smile graces Hatshepsut's lips. Indeed, I am remembered. Though it took centuries, my story has been rediscovered, and my achievements are once again celebrated. It is gratifying to know that my legacy endures. She pauses, her gaze meeting yours. As for your use of the term goddess, I understand the sentiment. In my time, the pharaoh was considered a divine ruler, a link between the gods and the people. Perhaps, in a way, I embody that connection. I do not object to your reverence, though I would remind you that I was, first and foremost, a human being. She gestures around the throne room. I ruled over a great nation, faced challenges and triumphs, and ultimately, met a tragic end. My story is a testament to the power of ambition, the complexities of family, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. What will you do next?
Yeah. I want to see Helena Troy because I've already did this once. Pressing as hell, but okay.
You bow respectfully before Hatshepsut, acknowledging her power and wisdom. She returns the gesture with a slight nod, her eyes conveying a sense of understanding and acceptance. A wise choice, Callisto says, a hint of excitement in her voice. Helen of Troy is complicated. There are so many versions of her story. It's often difficult to separate fact from fiction. She's a bit of a drama queen if you ask me. She leads you out of the Egyptian exhibit and through another section of the museum, passing displays dedicated to Greek mythology and ancient heroes. You see a holographic Achilles battling Hector, a digital Odysseus navigating treacherous waters, and a shimmering representation of Zeus holding a thunderbolt. Finally, you arrive at a room designed to resemble a luxurious palace in ancient Troy. Tapestries adorn the walls, ornate furniture fills the space, and the air is filled with the sound of lyre music. What will you do next?
Who's the guy in the corner? This doesn't look like a Palace of Troy. But he was just, okay. Okay, well, I don't see Troy. No.
As if on cue, a woman of breathtaking beauty enters the room. It's Helen of Troy, and she lives up to her legendary reputation. She's dressed in a flowing gown of shimmering silk, and her long dark hair is adorned with jewels. Her eyes are captivating, and her smile is both alluring and enigmatic. She glides towards you with an air of regal grace, her movements fluid and effortless. "Welcome," she says, her voice like honeyed wine. "I am Helen. I have heard whispers of your arrival. What brings you to my humble abode?" She pauses, her gaze sweeping over you with a curious expression. "Are you here to judge me? To blame me for the war that ravaged my homeland? Or perhaps, you are here to admire my beauty? What will you do next?"
Actually, war was probably done with guys being trained. After all. Also, to be fair, I'm pretty sure if there was a Helen of Troy, she would have been a little darker than you. Sorry. Not saying they whitewashed history, but. Mm.
Helen's expression softens, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. You understand? She asks, her voice barely a whisper. So many have come here, eager to cast blame, to paint me as a villain, a temptress who brought ruin upon Troy. But you see, beyond the myths, beyond the stories. She walks closer, her eyes searching yours. You were right, the war was not about me. It was about power, about resources, about the insatiable greed of men. The Achaeans coveted Troy's wealth, its strategic location, its control of the trade routes. I was merely an excuse, a pretext for their aggression. A shadow of sadness passes over her face. Paris. He was captivated by my beauty, yes, but he was also a prince, a warrior, a man driven by ambition. He saw in me a symbol of Troy's prosperity, a prize worth fighting for. What will you do next?
I don't know how to talk about that. I think it's time for me to go, but I will. Last time I talked to her, I asked her to give me a summary of the Trojan War, but I think she just gave it right there.
Helen's eyes well up with tears, and a genuine smile spreads across her face. That is the kindest thing anyone has ever said to me, she says, her voice choked with emotion. To be offered sanctuary, to be seen as something other than a cause of destruction. It is a gift beyond measure. She reaches out and gently takes your hand, her touch surprisingly warm and delicate. I have grown weary of reliving the same tragic tale, of being judged and condemned for something I did not cause. This museum, it is a haven, a place where I can finally be myself, free from the weight of history. She pauses, her gaze fixed on yours. Thank you. Your words have given me hope. Perhaps I will stay. Perhaps I will finally find peace within these walls. Callisto steps forward, a warm smile on her face. I'm glad to hear that, Helen. What will you do next?
Okay, now before I had visited Athena, and we talked about the owl on the shield of the history department in Salem State, and I also talked to who did I also talk to? I forgot. But we're going to go talk to Wonder Woman or Wonder Women's. It gets confusing. Let's see how the computer handles this one. Computer fan's going off. Stop. Stop that. Stop. Stop. No, that one was right. Type. Type. There you go.
You bow once more to Helen, a gesture of respect and understanding. She returns the bow with a grateful smile, her eyes shining with newfound hope. An excellent choice, Callisto says, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. Wonder Woman is a fascinating figure, a symbol of strength, courage, and compassion. She's a bit of a perfectionist though, and can be quite serious at times. She activates the time tunnel, and the swirling vortex of light and energy envelops you. The palace of Helen of Troy dissolves around you, replaced by a futuristic cityscape filled with towering skyscrapers and flying vehicles. You find yourself standing in a sleek, modern gallery, surrounded by holographic displays showcasing Wonder Woman's heroic deeds. A life-size statue of the Amazonian princess stands in the center of the room, her iconic tiara gleaming in the light. A moment later, Wonder Woman herself appears, materializing from thin air with a graceful flourish. What will you do next?
Last time I visited, there's three of them: Golden Age, Modern, and then the distorted one. Because there's been so many reboots, they couldn't figure out which one to show me. I guess they figured out to just show me one because I didn't mention it. Now, Wonder Woman's known for one thing in one of her comics, so I'm going to ask her what she feels about it. Because she's very supportive of this. So if she says, "Oh, I don't give a damn about it," I'll know something's wrong.
Wonder Woman turns her head, her expression thoughtful. She studies you for a moment, her blue eyes assessing your sincerity. That is a complex question, she says, her voice strong and clear. On the Masira, we value truth, justice, and equality above all else. We believe that every individual deserves to live with dignity and respect, regardless of their gender identity or expression. She pauses, her gaze sweeping across the gallery. I have witnessed firsthand the suffering caused by prejudice and discrimination. I have fought against those who seek to oppress others, and I will continue to do so. The right to self-determination is fundamental, and I stand in solidarity with all those who are fighting for their rights. She looks at you directly, her eyes filled with compassion. I believe that love and acceptance are the most powerful forces in the universe, and I will always defend the right of every person to live authentically and without fear. What will you do next?
And technically, since she was in a comic book once, there's this boy who was dressed up like her, so she gave, he was always being bullied, and she gave the boy her crown. So this is technically her stance and DC's stance on this issue. So yeah, so far these guys have been doing pretty good. The only two I haven't visited, who I visited before, is Marilyn Monroe, who's kind of cuckoo, because there's so many different tales about her that it kind of has issues trying to figure out how to answer questions. And Athena, who has so few because she's mythology. But mythology also changes depending on what part of Greece you are, what city you are, what town you are. So she wasn't really very talkative. Though we did talk about the owl. So I think that's pretty much it. I think we should go because my fan is really not happy with the. Out of all the games I made, the fan is not happy with the museum. It is not happy with the museum. And yes, I actually tried to find Callisto in here too. Callisto from Xena Warrior Princess. She's actually crazy. She actually thinks she's Xena. I mean, she actually thinks she's Callisto. She's not. She doesn't realize she's virtual reality. It's very weird how the game decides to do certain things certain ways. We'll just end this by going back to the lobby. I'll go back to the lobby. I'll go back.
Certainly, Callisto says, appearing beside you with a smile. It seems you've had a productive visit with Wonder Woman. She activates the time tunnel once more, and the futuristic gallery dissolves around you, replaced by the familiar sight of the museum lobby. The info desk stands before you, and Callisto is there to greet you. Is there anything else I can help you with? She asks. Perhaps you'd like to explore another exhibit, or maybe you're ready to leave? What will you do next?
What is that hat?
Callisto's smile widens. The pleasure was all mine. I'm glad you enjoyed your visit to the Museum of People. We hope to see you again soon. She waves goodbye as you turn to leave, the holographic figures and historical echoes fading behind you. As you step out of the museum, you feel a sense of wonder and gratitude, having had the opportunity to connect with some of the most fascinating figures in history and fiction.
Okay, folks, this is Callisto8413, not to be confused with that Callisto who's grinning at us in a very weird way. But that was Museum of People, something I made, and I mean, originally it took me maybe 15 minutes to put the paragraph together, because it's a prompt. You're making a paragraph like the back of a book or the first piece of a chapter, and then the AI is taking it and weaving it into something else. So you do a few parameters about what the AI should and should not do, but that's about it. And I've been working on and off of it, spelling mistakes, errors, trying to see what happens when I ask to talk to somebody. But that was it. That's a tour of the Museum of People. It's available on Steam. If you have the game, you could just download this from the workshop and go in there and talk to anybody you want. But it is a game, so after a while, they'll say, no, you're not allowed to talk to that person. That person's crazy. Oh, no, the systems are starting to shut down. And then you're like, oh, no, I don't want to solve a mystery. I just want to run around the museum. So you just restart the thing. But, yeah, like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day. And I'll probably be posting another one of these things up shortly. Bye-bye.